my ancestors are Scandinavian, Anglo-Saxon, I don't know, a mixture of all sorts. Maybe it's that, I don't know, but I know some Northern Europeans find Islam. I get it. It does fit.
Do you believe in an independent being? Do you believe in a God of sorts?
I believe in the first cause. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
But you just
but culturally, and I don't know. I don't know if it's culture. It just doesn't click for me. And you can't make it, can you? I don't know.
I mean, it depends. Like, for example, even if let's just say you've got. I'm not saying you have a psychological issue, but I'm saying whenever there's, we all do. Yeah. I mean, what's normal? Yeah. Thing is, if there's something, if you have an issue, you go to a therapist or a psychologist, and they break it down. Yeah, they see where it's stemming from, what the roots are. And sometimes, for example, cognitive behavioral therapy, they ask you questions, and then you respond, and like that, they get you to solve and arrive at the thing that's really bothering you. So I guess this is what I'm trying to say, that when you're saying that there are certain things, it could be like a needle in your mind, yeah, as Neo describes it. So what is that thing that if you were to really introspect and say, what is it that really rubs me off the wrong way about Islam? What would you...
okay, so we're looking, there's something negative about it that I...
yeah, because that is naturally going to affect you, isn't it?
I try and look at it objectively, and I just see I don't know, I just see a cultural phenomenon from 1400 years ago. It was, Abrahamic religion. It's a new version of an old idea retold. Christianity's been bypassed, although he's accepted, and it just seems like a story of a time in history. I don't see it as it has any relevance in my life. There's nothing particularly wrong with it. There's some parts of it that I find quite strong, and a lot of religions have strong. They deal with the dark and the good. I get it. You see that in the Bhagavad Gita. It's a war battlefield. He's told he's going to have to kill his relatives. So
in the Mahabharata,
yeah, and same in the Old Testament. There's all sorts of stuff going on. Yeah,
so it's interesting.
It's a historical in some sense. It's a story that I hear in lots of different religions. I don't see it as any different than any other religion in that sense.
So what's your name?
Alex.
Alex.
Yeah.
So Alex, there's one misconception here where you feel that Islam has come to somewhat cancel the previous religions.
No, I didn't mean that. It's just we're not cancel. It's just an extension of or a reworking for me.
Yes.
I mean, I know it says this is the final religion, and this is it's a readdressing some things where Christianity went wrong. I understand.
Yeah.
That. So it's God setting the record straight for the last time, as far as I understand. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, pretty much.
But it's from the Middle East. It's interesting historically to me, and I get why people are into it because it's culture and it's part of the world. It's not going anywhere, Islam. It's there. But there's lots of other avenues to explore in life, and there's other religions and other.
Have you read the Quran before?
I read a third of it. That's as far as I could get. I did try.
Oh, that's good. That's better than most.
I found it dry, but interesting as well. Some of it's lots of dictates and how to live your life, and I get that. And that's some of these things. I don't personally think that Islam was unique in these ideas. I think these are human phenomena, that were written down as a result of observing humanity, not necessarily a law from God telling humanity how to live. I think humans always try to live in a way that's useful to itself and to communicate with other cultures, and I think Islam and Torah they're almost records of human understanding rather than necessarily a law come down from God to tell them what to understand and how to live. So it's the other way around for me.
So what would you class as evidence for someone like yourself for you to believe that, okay, this book seems the most credible compared to the other books? What's your epistemic seedbed?
I don't think any of them. I think they all point to something, but I don't think any of them. I don't think any of them can be.
I'm saying, what do you regard as proof, as evidence?
I don't think anything in writing can actually prove a God or disprove it. I just think it's the idea of God is something well beyond writing, and
if you've got every
concept of a God can create a universe like that without even thinking. There's no effort, right? It's God, But this book we have to do telling us all this, that, and the other. It's humans trying to understand God.
Yeah,
and I get that. Why not?
Yeah, but if you think about it, Alex, every single religion has a holy book and claims to have a messenger. Now, as Muslims, we believe that the first man, Adam, from, of course, well, he was a prophet as well, till the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, all of them profess the one God. Yeah, they all profess the one God. However, after them, the scriptures were changed. Yeah, the scriptures were changed. But the Quran is the only scripture that has not been changed. It's been preserved.
Clever
hasn't
human
been changed.
ingenuity. Humans are clever, right? We're not stupid. We've got brains. We can build the
How do you
pyramids,
think?
and we can, put rockets on the moon. We can. I didn't the Jews used to copy the Torah out letter for letter? That's not unique to Islam, though, is it? I think
I think one thing I would add is that, you acknowledge that there's some sort of universal connection between all of us in our experience of humanity,
We're
right?
humans,
And there are,
we have something.
and not just that in our physical creation, but in certain beliefs that we have. There are things that are universally abhorrent: incest, rape, murder. There are fundamental things. But these are universal beliefs that are held irrespective of your race, religion, or culture, right? Unless you have something very fringe. So because there's a shared consciousness that we all have and a shared experience of living life, then by definition, there has to be something universally applicable to keep us all together, or for at least to function as a human society.
For me, it's inherent within us, like a mother's love for its child is inherent. She doesn't need to read a holy book to know to love her child.
That's fine.
As a father knows how to instill, morals in his son, or take him hunting or whatever.
That's perfect. But that inherent nature has to manifest itself in some sort of way in which how we govern and live with each other. I.e., that's why we follow the laws of this land, because the laws are based on some sort of rational following of how we understand how to be as humans,
which is developed over thousands of years.
True, but the fact is there is some sort of universal compatibility. So if there is, and we've just acknowledged that there is some sort of creator or some sort of power which has brought us into existence, well, just like nothing can't, your bag doesn't just come into existence. Someone has to go there, get all the bread and make it into something. If there's this fundamental power behind things coming to existence, and then that thing has made us all uniform in some elements in terms of how we govern, how we look at each other, how we live in society, what we find abhorrent, what we find
there
good.
appear to be laws within nature.
Then fundamentally there must be something. Exactly, there has to be some sort of law that can govern us in terms of these things as well, and it has to be by logic and by inference and deduction, something that can be applicable to all of humanity. So the first thing is then we're looking at religious scriptures, because they're the only ones that claim that. Then from the religious scriptures, then you have to start deconstructing each of those individually and then see again what according to rationality and logic.
So where you said the Old Testament was written down and copied, that doesn't apply to the Quran. Why? Because when you copy stuff, you can skip lines sometimes, errors creep in, and some scribes, Bar Ehrman's written a good book about, I think it's called Misquoting Jesus, in which he obviously compiles these things. When the Bible was written, how mistakes crept in, how scribes entered interpolations. That's why they needed the Council of Nicaea to rationalize the Holy Spirit and other things as well. But with the Quran, it's different. The Quran is the only holy book that has been mass memorized. So that's a form of it being preserved that we can discuss and prove right here, right now. The Bible has not been mass memorized. That's why today, even if you take two versions of the Bible from two different denominations, Roman Catholic Bible, you can take a Protestant Bible, you will see there's entire paragraphs missing. However, when it comes to the Quran, whether it's a Shia book, whether it's a Sunni book, whether it's of another denomination, all the books are identical. They're absolutely the same.
For me, doesn't mean the content is necessarily from God.
It doesn't. But what I'm saying is,
be very ingenious, and have managed to do that. And the claim is that they've managed to do that. Now, how true that is, I don't know. You can say it's true. How do I know?
But one thing is you're saying about empirical evidence, right? That we've come to is our own reason, our own rationality, our own improvements and advancement of humanity that has made us a society that we have, So you're saying it's very much our own stuff. It's not necessarily from God that we have these innate abilities.
Everything is God in a sense, you could say, on one level. This is, this is it. This is the great existence.
That's fine. But then if you're talking about empiricism and the five senses, someone that's, for example, a psychopath, like they've got a neurosis, for that person in their world, killing or murder might be perfectly fine. Now for you to then superimpose, say, well actually no, there's a moral standard that's set outside of your understanding of the world, they could argue the same things that you're arguing. Well, according to me, in his psychopathic way, murder and killing is okay. But according to his five senses and his empirical understanding, what he's doing is correct. So you have to have some sort of external objective applicability to people's behavior.
I hear that. I hear that.
So when you say we've done this and we've achieved this and it's us and this is it.
I hear that, but if Islam is the benchmark, it's very late in the game. It's very late in the game.
No, it's not.
Well, no, okay, hang on.
Oh, sorry.
But you know, like our ancestors, yeah, they could be brutal to each other, but within their communities they had an understanding and a cohesion, and they had laws and morals and ethics, and it went on for. If you take the anthropological idea, Homo sapiens have been around 200,000 years. Okay, so it's been a very long development, and then Islam is just a blink of an eye at the end, really, for me. And it's not. There's nothing in it that hasn't been thought of before. There's nothing new about morals or don't do this and don't do that. You see, I mean, the Sermon on the Mount, Christianity does that. The Exodus is full of these laws, and they didn't just come out. I mean, they say they come down from the Mount, but other cultures have laws and
actually Islam gives an answer
Taoism
for that. When you say Islam came in the end, it's not. Islam is actually the accumulation of all of these previous laws
Exactly,
from these
this
other
is the
religions.
idea,
So it's actually progressive. It's not something that came with just one prophet, with one man. We believe in Jesus
Yes,
and Moses
I know.
and David, and
But
even
it's not just the Middle East, though. Existence isn't just in the Middle East from Abrahamic religion.
Islam never claims that.
No, I know, but it's very idiocentric.
Alex, that's because the three main religions that we know are Abrahamic and they happen to come from the Middle East.
Yes, but there's lots of other religions.
There's been approximately 124,000 prophets that have come. And it's not all in the Middle East. It's just the last three prophets that we know of today, the Prophet Muhammad, Jesus, and Moses.
I get it.
But that's like, it's come at the end. But coming back to the Quran thing, so if, for example, we acknowledge that the Quran is something that, okay, God said He would preserve it. 1400 years have passed. No one has been able to change it. Yes, books have been burned, this has been done, that's been done, it hasn't been changed. Okay, that's the first premise, that's worked out. Number two, the Quran poses this as a challenge. It's called the inimitability challenge. I think I butchered the pronunciation.
I'm having trouble with my words today.
Yeah, inimitability challenge.
Okay, well done.
I think I flopped there again.
Sounded all right to me.
Yeah, so what that is the Quran is challenging people that if you believe that this is not from God, then find and come with a verse that's like it. Now, bear in mind, the Quran was revealed in Arabia. There were Arabic speaking geniuses at that time. Yet, nobody was able to materialize a verse that could contradict this. For them, it would have been easy. The verse comes down, boom, let's contradict it. Boom, Islam over, finished.
Contradict it what sense?
In terms of challenge it.
Or to come up with something similar.
Yeah.
Yeah, but what I've read in the Quran, I hear people saying you should read it in Arabic. I don't see anything that magnificent in the language or anything. It's of the time. I mean, I read some. If you read some of the Gnostic Gospels, there's great poetry in there and great concepts of God.
That's because Alex is in English. In Arabic, that's why the person
not
told
everyone's
you.
going to learn Arabic.
I know, but what I'm saying is,
with respect, the world is not going to become Islamic. Islam will remain, but the world will there's always going to be diversity, and that's how it is.
And that's fine, but in fact, the Arabic language of the Quran, the reason why it's been revealed in that language is because of the fact that in itself is a means of protection of the Quran. Because all other languages are not as deep as Arabic is in terms of very bespoke words, because there are many different forms of the same thing.
Again, this is.
And that's just a means of protection, not a means of marginalizing anyone from
Mandarin or against Arabic. It's going to be completely different conceptually. It's going to be like a different animals. It's very hard to compare languages. They have different. I mean, the Chinese have different ways of understanding sounds and pictograms, and they think in different.
They do.
Different. It's very difficult to say this is the ultimate language of God.
But Alex,
I don't know.
when there's a claim,
these claims, I understand it points you to God and gives you a connection with God, but
Alex,
I can argue with that, right? And what we're asking is why hasn't it clicked with me? Because I just don't see it as an ultimate expression of the divine. You are. I see you guys as the ultimate. Because look, you are the flesh, right? The light made flesh or whatever. This is the real book. We're in it, right? And the Quran for me is a sort of attempt to understand that, or a reflection on that. Maybe I am totally wrong, but that's how I see it. So I find it hard to then let go of all this and just go, the Quran.
Yeah.
The thing is, it's beauty, there's poetry in it, and it's
the thing with the Quran, even when it comes to Arabic, the thing is, if we're making the claim that God has selected this language, Arabic. Yeah, we can give you other examples like Arabic from the other scriptures, like you've got Hebrew of the Old Testament, you've got Greek of the New Testament, yeah. Then you've got Arabic. Arabic, in comparison to the others, is mostly is more spoken, more literature, blah blah blah. However, if you're now saying Chinese, and you're saying Chinese, let's just say you're saying it's more superior than Arabic.
I didn't say it was more superior.
No, I said if.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, if you're saying, then what you do, Alex, is you say, okay, it's this particular thing that's in Chinese that's not in Arabic. Yeah, that's why I disagree with the fact that Arabic would be more superior in this regard, because we're making the claim. We're saying that Arabic is the best language to convey the final revelation, and that's the claim. In order to then rebut the claim, you have to say, okay, but this language has this.
I can't. I don't know Chinese.
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying.
The thing is, what about Taoism, for example? I mean, that's a very ancient religion, right?
Which one?
Taoism. It's the Chinese, the sort of yin yang and all that, the 64 hexagrams. And that's very ancient, very beautiful, very poetic. Have you ever studied that and compared it with some of the ideas in Islam? I mean, it's very different, but it's got its own animal, if you like.
Okay.
I don't know, I'm just curious. I mean, there's so much diversity, and to say this is it, and does it matter if not everyone becomes a Muslim? I mean, does it matter?
And we're not claiming that if there's not any beauty or any other spiritual or other worldly benefits they can get from other literature, that's not something that we're saying. What we're saying is, if you're looking at comprehensiveness, and even as an example, for example, it's not the Quran is the text, but the living example of the Quran will be the Prophet Muhammad. Because any scriptural texture, you need something which it applies to in your everyday life. And then we claim that example, that living example of the Quran, which is demonstrable, is the life of the Prophet Muhammad. So I would even say that to see if you find Quran at this precise moment to you to be inaccessible for whatever reasons, then looking into the life of the Prophet Muhammad would put that into context, and something that something that you might be able to maybe better understand and then see the beauty of how the Quran is actually applied. Because the Quran is the Quran, but the applicability of that is the life of the Prophet Muhammad.
I hear that, and I'm no doubt.
And just to add to that might actually be an answer to your point that you were going to say, which is you said why can't we just experience everything?
Well, not everything, but it's okay for me to not
different
be a Muslim,
ideology,
right?
yeah. So what I would say is, why I would then say is, being a Muslim doesn't restrict. It actually opens doors. Yeah, it actually opens up your understanding, because now you're linked to God. So naturally, if you're linked to the divine, the one who's created everything, the one who's all powerful, then surely, rather than restricting your life, it should expand your life. Do you see? So where you might be thinking that, you know what, you're rejecting everything else and you're adhering to one thing, we're saying is that what it actually does is it actually liberates you, actually puts the world into its context, and it helps you achieve and attain more benefit from it with a more kind of, like they say, consciousness. Yeah, different chakras and all that sort of thing.
I understand as a focus, as a way to live your life. If it's not harming anyone and it's a balanced religion and a balanced way of life, and it does good for you and your community and so on, I can't see any harm in it.
And
it's a good focus, but it doesn't have to be on Islam.
It doesn't, but these metaphysical questions, who am I, where have I come from, what is the purpose of life, these are fundamental questions for our own psychological well-being as well. We need to have a purpose in life.
I understand.
And Islam, if you look at it in the textual perspective from the life of the Prophet Muhammad, it gives you guidance, it gives you the answers to these points, which unfortunately, it gives you a certain amount of, not closure, in fact it's what the brother is saying, liberation. It gives you a sense of purpose and meaning in your life. Whereas when you look for these other religions and ideologies and philosophies, you might get certain things from here or there that provides some level of comfort or understanding, but in a comprehensive or holistic way, there's nothing else that I can see, which is why I turn to Islam to answer those questions for me that way. And I did study some of these other Taoism and some of the writings of Zeeshan and these other scholars as well, and I didn't find anything as comprehensive and could answer and give me meaning in my life as that did. And that's what we're suggesting, that you go with it and I know you have, with an open mind. But again,
I've tried.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, I'm not out to sort of say you're wrong or whatever, but it's just not right for me at the moment. I mean, who knows? I think
that's the word you just used, at this moment.
Well,
you never know what the future holds.
But isn't it the same for Taoism? Sorry. Maybe at the moment Taoism isn't the truth for you, but if you kept on going along with it, it's spoke to some masters.
I mean, that's true for any religious ideology they look at, but again, it's this objective third point that you were talking about, that you look at something from an objective third point and you look at it for what it is rather than looking at the adherents. I mean, Taoism, in terms of a religion that's followed by people and its historical kind of veracity, is not something that can be compared to the three major Abrahamic religions. And if the fact that those three Abrahamic religions, we claim, have an integral connection, that shows that there's some sort of veracity to that as well. I mean, something being truthful and being useful and being universally followed, that is also a sign of its acknowledgement of its veracity as well.
It's not just about how many people are into the thing, though. It's about if it's true or not.
But surely if it's a universal truth, that it should be applicable to all of
a lot
humanity.
of people are conditioned to follow things that are not true. Come on.
Social conditioning is something that's there, I agree.
But then you have to analyze the claims that it's making, isn't it?
Can I ask just one question?
Yeah, sure.
What does it mean to you for me to become a Muslim, or anyone else? Why is it important for you, for non-Muslims, to become Muslims?
Okay, so if we claim that this is the holistic way that a person can live their life, the best way they can, yeah, and we've been on this place and we're claiming that there is a heaven, there is a hell, then naturally it's of concern to us that believing this, that we also but we present this message to other people and help them understand this so they can benefit from this world and in the hereafter also. It's more from a concern standpoint. It's not like a tally chart that we go tick one thing off and then yes, we've done it, we earn a point. Because at the end of the day, we're young also, we've got work tomorrow, we work at the same place and we're here, and you know, we have to get up early in the morning and go to work or whatnot. So again, for us to take time out is because we genuinely believe that it's affected our life and we've looked into it and we believe it to be true, and we have implemented it in our lives, and we have analyzed the claims, and we feel confident enough that we can present that to somebody else that's also rational, that will also be able to see that as well. That's pretty much.
And fundamentally,
so, compassionate thing.
Yeah, the dissemination of the knowledge isn't for any materialistic or you know reasons. It's purely altruism. You know, there's nothing that we have as such to gain from standing here and doing this, but it is generally from our own experiences, and it's not an individual experience. I mean, if you look at generally the religion and what it promotes, these are ideals that we live by in our daily lives, and it's very in sync with human nature. That's why when you said about us and how we are, I found personally anyway that Islam kind of already acknowledges and validates those kind of feelings that we have as human nature. Many of the things that we find abhorrent, they're already present in Islam.
Yeah.
So I mean, I think the only thing is just coming out with an open mind, an open heart, and I would also say trying to take away any biases from how, because again, this is what my friend says here, that you don't judge anything by its adherents. You don't follow the religion. You don't judge or make assumptions about anything.
You present an Islam that's quite, what's the word, peaceful, where you come with your characters present that, so it filters through you, right? Where some other Muslims are quite warlike in their characters. So it's interesting to hear, you have a more altruistic, whereas other Muslims, not all, but it's a percentage, it's a battle with the West, right? You know what I'm talking about. I mean, and so yeah, I don't know.
Alex, let me ask you a question. Are you aware of any Buddhist extremist group?
I've heard recently
any names?
I can't think of the name off the top of my head.
Okay. Are you aware of any Hindu extremist group?
The Hashasins. The Hashasins.
No.
They back in the day, they smoke hash and kill the English out in.
They're mostly originated from Iran, yeah.
Oh, is it Iran?
Hashashin. That's where the word assassin comes from, yeah.
Yeah, well, I understand that. It's about the person.
No, the point that I was trying to say is, then I was going to ask you about any Jewish extremist groups and Christian extremist groups.
Well, there's always nutcases.
Exactly, but the point, Alex, I'm trying to say is the amount of atrocities that are currently taking place in India. Yeah, this is on a regular basis. It's absolutely ridiculous. Yeah. However, in the current media that we get, you're not going to be told of names like Hindutva. You're not going to be told about the Sanghis. You're not going to be told about the RSS. Maybe the RSS a little bit, depending where you've heard it from. But we're not hearing. Have you ever heard of the word Hindu terrorist said in the media in the last week or so? No. Buddhist terrorist?
No.
Or Jewish terrorist?
I have to say one thing though. I mean, the Quran, what I've read in the Quran, there are some odd verses in there that are pretty strong. And within Buddhist literature that I've read, which is little, Tibetan Book of the Dead, stuff like that. There's nothing like quite as written down in the book. There's nothing quite so insightful as there is in the Quran and perhaps the Old Testament. So they're quite bloodthirsty books in places. I have to say that's what I've read. I can't take that away. You know, maybe it's dealing with real life. Okay, real life can be warlike sometimes. You know, like the Bhagavad Gita, everyone thinks that's all peaceful and love. Well, he's going to go and kill his relatives, right, at the end of it. But there's this whole, you know, moral argument or questioning with Krishna. What's that? Yeah, exactly.
There's an entire book called the Mahabharata.
Yeah, the Mahabharata.
Which is,
I get that. Yeah, exactly. I do understand that. So I move towards Buddhism. I mean, okay, the scriptures, the Buddhist scriptures, probably more than I do the Middle Eastern scriptures. Just because maybe I'm being unrealistic and not, you know, trying to ignore the darker side of life. But it just appeals to me more.
I don't think it's that. You know what I think it is, Alex? It's that no matter what we see, eventually it does have some sort of unconscious effect on us. It does influence our choices. That's why you've got Coca-Cola and Pepsi spending millions. I think Pepsi had like a marketing budget of like 80 million. Yeah, because they understand that marketing works. It does work. And even media, fair politics, fair mongering, it does work. That's the only way they sell newspapers. In fact, war works very well for arms companies and of course the mainstream media that we have. But the point that I'm trying to say is that this may be a clouding your judgment. That the fact that it's this constant thing of Muslim or Islamic terrorism as opposed to Hindu terrorism.
I can separate that out from the book. Within the book though, I do see bloodthirsty verses, but justified by the God, by Allah and so forth, and Muhammad. I can't ignore it, that's in there. I'm not saying that, well, obviously all Muslims don't read that, go, right, I'm going to go out and do something. Of course I get that, you know, it's smart to see through that, but yeah, it just, I mean, that doesn't...
But Alex, you said you read a quarter of the book.
A third, I would say.
A third? Okay, it's gone up.
No, it was a third. If I said a quarter, it was a mistake. I don't know. I've read some of it.
Maybe it's gone up for me then.
I don't know.
So you've read a third. The thing with that, Alex, is
I have dipped in at other places as well.
Yeah, but that's the thing. Imagine if I pick up Harry Potter and then I dip in the middle. And then I see Voldemort saying something really stupid. I'm like, this is...
but I mean, the Quran, you know, you should get a good gist once you get going with it. I mean, what's going on. I mean, I get the idea. You know.
You do.
But the whole Quran is a combination of a whole social, a whole way of life for any Muslim.
Right?
So if the entire book is a guidance, then the whole book should be read as well. Because
I understand that.
Because then
I can't. Where I come back, I can't click with it. I find it hard. It's like if I've not read Harry Potter, if it wasn't interesting me, you know, you can't read everything.
What was the translation? Because I know there's some translations that
it was something I picked up a long time ago. You know, I get the gist of it. Worship Allah, Muhammad's the prophet, be a good person. And then there's some strong rules about, you know, if people are in the land and they're doing mischief, you know, then you can cut their hands off and stuff. And
how to treat your wife.
Yeah, well, you know, and I understand. Don't get me wrong. In history, shit happened. Bad, you know, a few hundred years ago, the heads on spikes at Tower Bridge here. You know, every culture's got this. We've moved on from that now, and some could argue that's right or wrong. But
I think you need to be very careful with the translation. You said about the mischief is there and cut the hands off. That's
well, it happens, doesn't it? I mean, it's from people reading the Quran that hands get cut off, or you know.
One thing is practices of people and how they justify that. One is where it's coming from scripture. Yeah. There's a clear difference between the two.
I'm just saying, for me, it doesn't make me connect with God reading that. I get it, it's a law. If I was reading a historical book about law in Arabia back in the 7th century, I'd be like, okay, that happened, but I'm not connecting with God when I'm reading that. I'm just reading harsh laws for criminals. Yeah, I could read a book about some of the stuff that happened here, you know, in any country in the world. Look at the Aztecs, what they did to their own people,
I think
you know.
The love doesn't jump out of the book.
Yeah.
I haven't read all of it, but I've read some of it as well.
Yeah, the things that a third is...
The love.
I know.
You just feel very just
still get an idea.
I know.
And Alex, also, what happens is there's different types of verses in the Quran also. There's some verses that have been abrogated. There's some verses that are mutashabihat, which means that there's no real meaning that Allah's attached to it. Sometimes when you read it, you need tafsir, you need further explanation. I'll give you an example. That's where then you need to look into what the Prophet said. that's when you need to look at what the companion said. Yeah, then you get a holistic picture. I'll give you an example. For example, let's just say when you get like a shelf from IKEA, it just comes with a book. Yeah. Now normally, I don't know about you, but they've obviously got really good minds behind saying let's make the picture as accessible as possible or whatnot. But as human beings, we have different levels of intelligence, and sometimes we may not grasp certain things for many reasons. We may not be at a certain level in our life or a certain intelligence, or our culture may be bringing us down, whatever the thing may be. That's where the Quran invites us to go to the people of knowledge, and that's a principle that we apply everywhere else. If you don't understand something, or you've misunderstood something, you go to somebody of knowledge. For example,
isn't it simple enough? Submit to God.
No, because the Quran has come. Not really.
I mean, why does it have to be God? Shouldn't it be simple? God is, submit to God. Everyone's got this unknown quantity within their mind. There's always a question. If you really think, you don't have to think too hard. Think this is a bit mad, right? Life is strange. Is there a creator? Submit to God or believe in Jesus Christ. He will, he wash away your sins. There's nothing complex about that. It's not hard to get.
I think that those concepts are the basic concept of Islam, and they are easy.
You don't need to get in. You become. I mean, do you have to go through all the?
But those things are clear in the Quran.
But shouldn't God just be in your heart and like come to you, and it shouldn't just be a revelation? I get it.
But that's fine. But
you have to do the reason why A level, then the
But it's not necessarily because if we acknowledge that this guidance is something for civilizations, for communities to live by, then there has to be some sort of laws that are enacted.
Yeah, but that's the theocracy part. I'm talking about the belief in the revelation of God. But that, I mean, are you going to get a revelation from God from a load of laws that, don't steal your neighbour's ox, or I mean, that's a lot of people had these, understood this before the Quran wrote them down. I mean, Egypt had lots of laws, ancient pharaohs, there were lots of laws in Egypt. My Celtic ancestors had laws, they maybe didn't write them down. That's the problem with the Norse religions, they didn't really write it down. Odin, Thor. Well, yeah, but they went for thousands and thousands of years. They had, they had their idea. They had a one creator God which divided into two, and then all the other gods. But there was one at the top, right? So there's. Anyway, I've gone off on a tangent, but essentially, the idea.
You're saying the fundamental tenets need to be clear.
Well, if you read the book, it should be at the beginning. It's something that touches your heart or touches you and makes you realise there's something bigger to get hold of and to focus your life in, and that can be good, right?
That's exactly what the first chapter of the Quran offers.
I've read it once. I can't remember. Okay, well maybe that's good. It should do that then. But all the laws about this, that, and the other. That's just
laws come afterwards, and then of course, with laws, there's the situations that you apply the laws, and that requires explanation. So I agree with you in that regard that with those laws, well, they work. We would argue they can work even now as well. That's the claim that we're making.
Well, good luck with that, man. But I don't know. Are they going to? We've changed. We're very different now than we are in the 7th century.
I'll tell you a law that happened a month ago. There's a law that says that if you pull down one of these statues that you see on the streets, you can get 10 years in prison.
Okay, is that something that's just come in? Or
that's come in a couple of months ago.
Okay.
However, if you rape somebody, it starts at 5 years. So for a rational person thinking, hang on a minute, pulling down a statue gets me 10 years, raping someone gets me 5 years. How on earth does this make sense? Yeah, so the point that I'm trying to say is...
That doesn't mean Islam's going to come in and take it.
It's not, and I'm not making this claim, but what I'm saying is that this inherent notion that, we are very advanced now and we understand and we have a
what
system...
I'm saying it's changed. Things are very different. Yeah. I mean, Foucault said that, just because it's in the past doesn't mean it's wrong. It can be better. I understand that. I'm not blind to it. But, I think now that it's so loaded, Islam. It's got so much... It's very hard to, how are you going to bring it in? I mean, realistically, do you think it can come in and...
The classical example is that it was implemented ideally, and that's the model that we have, just like there are models of ideal ways of doing something else. Whether people decide to enact that, because I will be the first one to claim that at the moment, any country that claims to be Islamic or implement these laws is not following through with the way that it's meant to be. That's a criticism of the people, not criticism of the religion. And that's the way the difference.
So many variables in life, new ideas, different laws. Laws have to be made when technologies change, cultural. When cultures change, laws have to change. It's slightly, Islam is static.
No,
It's like-
there's no rigidity. The things that there needs to be flexibility, there is. And in fact, even the laws that are based on the British Constitution, they're pseudo-Christian laws from the Enlightenment period.
Yes.
So that shows that a theist way of running a country, not theocracy in the sense that there's a priest ruling the country, but a theocratic way of establishing law is a viable way of doing it. Now that if you accept that premise, i.e. the premise of the British Constitution is based on a Christian ideology, then the question is, well, which theocratic system actually has one that is universal can be applied? And actually, when you look at Islam, it is the reason when you talk about these laws in the Quran is because those laws have to be enumerated by God. Otherwise, how would any society and civilization know how to establish themselves? There would be chaos.
I mean, Christianity came to Europe. I understand it. It's a Middle Eastern religion. It did happen, right? And it became Europe. I can't think. What would you say? Not anglicized. The word whole of Europe became. It changed. So, do you think that could happen with Islam? Do you think all Northern Europeans and the French, we're all gonna? Do you think it could we're all gonna suddenly be praying 5 times a day? Like
it won't be sudden, and whether people pray 5 times a day, that's individual choice. Islam is not coming here because we have free will. If God didn't give free will to people, then that would be something that would be by itself immoral and wrong as well.
Do you think it would just be pockets of Islam, pockets of Christianity, pockets of atheism for the future? Or do you think, can you see Islam slowly over the next few centuries becoming the world?
Well, the thing is that Islam is the fastest growing religion, and it is something that
okay. Well, go on.
Yeah, the point that I'm making is that it's something that is appealing to enough people that they are accepting it. That's number one. Number two,
people that like it. I get it.
Yeah, and I would even say that if you actually look at the reasons why, it's not something that's necessarily religious. I think it's the actual text itself. People are finding that come from backgrounds where they're not practicing, or people that are not Muslim, is that they look at the actual text and the sources and they find something that can vibe with them on a personal level or on a political level or some sort of level where it enhances their life.
They're a bit lost in the West, you could say that. We don't, technology, science, communities are breaking up, they want something. I get it, I do understand that, but we'll see, right? I mean, not in our lifetimes probably, but maybe one day. But everything that comes into being passes away. The Buddhists talk about impermanence, yeah?
That's fine, yeah.
Eventually the earth's going to be swallowed up by the sun, but...
And in fact, the last set of verses from the Quran, the other 30% towards the end, that actually mainly focuses on that. It focuses on the purpose of life and what is to come in the hereafter when you do pass away. These are philosophical, metaphysical questions about being and purpose. And I think
I like those kind of things.
I would actually say that the last third of the Quran is actually more in tune with those kind of questions that you want answered. That's why when we said about reading, I know you're saying it should hit you immediately at the beginning.
No, it shouldn't hit me immediately, but in this case I struggled.
The first book of Harry Potter was rejected, and it was rubbish.
12 times, yeah.
It was rubbish.
It probably
and the
is
first book is the worst book in the whole
fan.
series, but it's become one of the biggest film franchises in the world. So you can't look at things just from the way it starts.
I'm going to read Harry Potter then, you sold me. No.
The thing, Alex, one thing to add on to that is even innately, as human beings, we're inclined to believe in a God. Yeah, there was a study.
Well, I've always wanted to know.
Yeah, there's a study done by Justin Barrett and Olivera Petrovich, which you can search up. The Justin Barrett one is very interesting, some of the findings that he presented. So there is
Don't deny a first cause or a presence that is, if you like.
That's very
the
good.
nature of that, it's for each of us to try and understand.
Of course, and that's what you're doing here today as well, isn't it?
I'm in it and of it, so I can't escape it. Right, creation is. There's no non-being, right?
But I think what the brother's saying is a very, very good point for you as well. That these biases and these kind of preconceptions that we have, it's hard to distance ourselves from these because of the media and because of even the nature versus nurture debate we were saying before about what we've been indoctrinated to or what we read. If there is any way to distance yourself from that, and I would even say look at it from a kind of neutral perspective, in an environment that's neutral, make sure that your sources are kind of distant from these kind of biases as well. That will give you a more accurate picture.
I believe, let's just say I believe in God, right? Let's say it, I believe in God. So it's all good, right? I don't need to say I'm a Muslim, do I? Or am I by default a Muslim? So I am a Muslim. I believe in God. That's it.
You're halfway there.
Why?
I'll tell you why.
But this is a cultural thing now. This is the thing, because God is God, right? That's it. So what do I have to? I have to learn Arabic. I mean, God is God.
The concepts of God vary from religion to religion vastly, and then if
God
you're
is, right? That's all I know. God is.
Yeah, but intaining belief in something or abiding by it entails following all of it. You can't just simply say that I'm a British citizen. That involves, giving your allegiance in the sense of abiding by rules and laws, whether you agree with them or not. So entailing the same analogy to religion, that if you believe in God, then you also have to enact and follow the adherence to all.
So if I had never heard of the Quran, I lived on an island somewhere and I didn't have the Quran, I believed in God, it's all good, right?
Those rules are different.
At that moment in time, it would be all good.
You're bending it to
Alex, at that moment in time, it would be good.
Well,
listen, I know I've heard this argument before, but it's because what's in your heart and God understands. You haven't been told about the Quran. I get it, but these are the proselytizing religions. It's our way or no way, or the highway. And I hear it from Christians, and I don't hear it from Jews because they're really the source of the Abrahamic religions, and they don't proselytize. But you guys, I get it.
Jews don't proselytize.
They don't proselytize. They don't preach and want to join. You don't want to become. They're not looking for converts, are they? You can become a Jew. It's hard work. I believe you have to marry or do a lot of courses and show you. Yeah, it's hardcore, right? I mean, I thought Odin, right? My ancestors might have worshipped him, or Woden, the one-eyed god, the old wise man of the mountain or whatever, and that was good enough. That was a connection with the divine. It was just a name, it's just a word. They didn't have camels, they didn't have camels, that's what I'm going to say. They didn't have the culture of Arabia, the mysteries. They had their own mystery, the mystery of the wood, the mystery of the mountains, in Arabia they had the mystery of the desert, and all the different aspects of that land, and that influenced how they perceived the one, the all, as far as I'm concerned.
There's the idea of universal applicability as well. You say Arabia. There's a difference between culture and religion. There's a lot of affiliation with Islam with certain Arab cultural practices. There's a very clear distinguishment. Yes, it was revealed at a certain place at a certain time to a man, but the culture is very much in Arabic. That's fine. That's perfectly accepted. But that's not necessarily a disparaging or a criticism of the fundamentals and the ideas and the beliefs.
I'm not saying it is. I'm just saying there are other. God is, right, and whether I'm a Norse a Viking or a Red Indian. If I was born a Red Indian 400 years ago, it would have been the Great Spirit. That would where I was at, right?
But that religion hasn't lasted, though. Islam has.
Well, that doesn't mean anything. It doesn't mean anything.
Religion
but then what you need to do,
Hinduism's lasted, Taoism's lasted.
And we claim that there is a certain amount of connectivity with these religions as well, with the Abrahamic faith, that we claim that these are fundamental religions that were revealed by God. And it doesn't predispose that these other religions weren't also nations that had prophets sent to them as well.
Prophets, American Indians, they were.
We don't deny that.
Popularity doesn't mean anything when we're talking about truth. Truth is often esoteric, actually. Hence, you both just said earlier, maybe one of you said, if you're not aware of something of the Quran, you go to someone who's more learned than you. Yeah? So actual truth, like deep knowledge, is always esoteric, actually.
Yeah, and the Quran is, to a certain extent, accessible to everyone. But that doesn't mean that you can understand everything. You can learn basic science, you can learn basic biology. It doesn't make you necessarily qualified to be a doctor and then start enacting that. So this basic level of knowledge is there for everyone, and the universal truth is exactly what you're saying, something that you can feel in your heart and you can come to that realization. But we're not just spiritual beings, we're rational beings. We also have rationality and logic and reason.
I understand.
And even according to those tenets, God still gives evidences for that your rationality and logic can also lead you to God as well.
Why didn't Gabriel appear to the Aztecs?
Well, who's to say that he didn't?
Well, there'd be a book, surely. It would make sense to have the book, and then they wouldn't be doing all this terrible killing.
The coming of Angel Gabriel was not the only criteria.
Yeah, but
Coming of Angel Gabriel is not the only criteria by which you judge whether Islam came to a nation. There were prophets that were sent, there were messengers that were sent. It could have been even by association that nations learned of the religion. We're not saying that. But what I'm saying is there was guidance for people, as there is guidance for people available today. It's whether or not people can want that guidance, whether they want to look into it.
So, I could follow the American Indian religion, really. It's still the same.
You could, but the criteria for God, does it appeal to your rationality? That would be the question. And if it does appeal to your inherent rationality, then that is God. For example, the claim that the Quran puts forward in Surah Ikhlas, that He is God one. Yeah? The independent. He does not beget, nor is He begotten, and there is none like Him. These were the verses that were revealed when somebody questioned who is God. So that's our criterion. And it appeals every single step of these appeals to the rational, logical mind. If somebody comes and starts saying, oh, God is somebody that eats and drinks, somebody would start thinking, but then if they eat and drink, then that person excretes as well.
Yeah, okay, I hear that.
Yeah.
I hear that.
But some Muslims believe God has a shin.
Yeah, but let me
You'll have to speak to them, isn't it?
God, for me, I mean, yeah, you can read a verse in the Quran and that won't make any sense to you, or you can just know God exists.
What we're saying is, if you believe God
Right.
exists, but He's revealed a book,
Yeah, but you don't have to read the book to know God exists.
no, I agree with you. That's an innate disposition to believe that a God exists. Now,
Okay,
to
I
know
believe in
what,
God, that's it.
yeah, I agree with you. But then to take that forward and say, okay, what does those questions? What am I doing here? How do I live my life?
I'd ask God.
Or how?
Well, I don't know.
So
How
what
would you
you're
know?
asking for is
I mean,
you're
God-
saying you that should be enough.
Well, who
but
knows?
Yeah, but
Who
yeah,
knows? God can do whatever it wants.
That's fine. But when you say, oh, that's enough for us, but then when you actually need God's help in answering basic
Then
questions
you
of
pray
your life,
to God, right? And ask.
No, but if you're saying that should be enough for everyone, that's fine. But let's say that's enough for me. I believe in God. I'm done. Then when I have basic questions about my existence and I need guidance and I need help,
Maybe
and these are
meditate.
metaphysical questions that no one can answer, surely
That's not
God should be
You
able to
don't
answer
know
and
that.
help you with
Well,
the guidance of that.
maybe
He said
quiet
no one can
meditation
answer.
might bring
There's
some
there are literally
revelation.
thousands of people who know about the true self.
What's my purpose in life? That's something that someone can answer for you individually.
No, when it comes to purpose, it's an idea. Purpose is an idea.
No, but even if it's an idea, what is my purpose in life? Why am I
It's up
here?
to you. It's your idea. It's your choice.
But then, yeah, on the one hand, you're
Not
saying God is
really.
creating me, but then you don't necessarily need God's help or answering that. Surely, if there's a God and you believe in Him, there should be some guidance from Him to answer these basic questions for yourself.
Well, first of all, he said that. But in terms of the guidance, again, they're literally, for those big questions, so-called enlightened beings, you know what I mean by that, who can answer these questions. Because the biggest question I suggest to you, right, both of you, obviously, is not does God exist? What is God? It's what is I? What is self? You are the one perceiving reality. You exist in some way. That's more fundamentally true than knowledge of God.
100%. No, but I would say something else in opposition to that. If we agree that consciousness is collective and we are all part of this shared existence together and there's some uniformity with us as a species, then surely the one that's created that uniformity and that existence, we can't turn to that being. So his job is just to create and then he washes his hand of that and
was
says,
the
now you're by
assumption.
yourself.
That was the assumption here. Like you said, universal consciousness, essentially togetherness, which
Yes.
I agree with, by the way.
Yes.
I believe.
Yes.
Cool.
Right.
But then you jumped and said, surely it was created. That's an assumption that consciousness was created.
But you're also making an assumption. You're saying purpose is subjective, but we're making the argument that
definitely
purpose is objective. That's
please
where the
God,
difference.
right?
Yeah. So God has sent us here to know and worship Him. So that's the objective.
If there's an
purpose.
objective connectivity between all of us, that we all share some sort of objective togetherness in terms of immorality, things that we find immoral, togetherness, the way that we existed. There's an objective existence that we have, a connection, yet the answers to all of our questions are going to be subjective. That's in complete antithesis of each other.
Answers,
exactly.
answers come secondary. The most actual truth, what we know for sure, I suggest to you, is we exist in whatever way we exist.
This is happening. This is the great vision.
This is happening. This moment is
This
happening.
is what we know.
That's
This is
the blanket. That's the constant through every moment. And then after that, thoughts come. But hold on. How did I get here? Why am I here? Why do I look different to you? Those are other things. They are all literally subjective. They are false ideas.
Yes.
I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that. But if we're talking about truth, they are ideas. Hence, even within Islam, as you know, not everyone believes the same thing, the exact same thing. Right? Christianity, not everyone believes the exact same thing because of thoughts and ideas.
But even the word truth, like there's a truth. You know, something can't have two truths, and 2 + 2 is 4. There can't be two truths. So a fundamental question that we exist, we're here. Why are we here? How have we come into being? Surely that answer has to be a universal truth and one answer for that
Yes,
as well.
yeah.
How can that?
That's to be objective as well.
Yeah, because look, we're all existing, we're all human beings, we've been fashioned in this way. That's all the same and that's one truth. Yet the other reasons for our existence and why we come here, that now becomes individualistic.
I can tell you the reason that we exist. I'm going to reveal the answer right now. Right?
We already revealed the answer.
This is the reason we exist, right? I'm going to ask you, it's a simple question, I'm not trying to trick you, yeah?
Yeah, go on.
What's the opposite of existence? Non-existence. But do you agree? Yeah, non-existence, right?
Yeah.
Does non-existence exist?
Are you asking that is non-existence a tangible
In any way, does non-existence exist? In any way,
Rug puller.
does it exist?
What is nothing something? That's the philosophical question that Kant and others have argued
Say it like
before.
that too?
Does non-existence exist? That in itself is up for interpretation. There's not a given answer for that either.
Yeah.
So you're not sure?
No,
What's your question?
what he's saying
The question is very clear, and
Yeah.
he got it. I'm going to assume, I might be wrong now, you're not Muslim. You are Muslim. Okay, I respect that then. You're religious, and you said it. Because I'm sure you know, bruv, you're clearly intelligent.
No, non-existence.
By definition, non-existence doesn't exist. You know that.
Therefore, you
I'm going to put words in your mouth though. By
No, but-
definition, it's non-existence. I'm giving you the answer.
Right.
It's non-existence.
Okay, so what's the point?
No, but do you agree though? If you
No.
don't agree, then we have
No,
to
because-
Are you saying you have no choice but to exist?
we're saying
that's what I'm getting to.
Yeah.
we're saying there's three types of existences: something that can't exist, something which is dependent, and something which is independent. These are the three types of existences.
Cool. So you kind of answered me then. So non-existence doesn't exist then.
We're saying something that can't exist, like a squared circle.
Yeah, but therefore,
that what you're talking about?
No, but therefore, I'm fine with those three things. But therefore, so-called non-existence isn't a thing.
It doesn't. If it falls within those three criteria,
But it doesn't, does it?
Then it doesn't.
then does it?
The point is, I don't know. What, okay,
That's fine. We agree with that point.
The point is, okay. The point is.
What's the point?
What I suggest to you both, to everyone in the whole world, right, is there can only be existence because non-existence doesn't exist. Meaning there can only be something. Now you two will of course say that thing is God. Cool. God always exists. Yes. I'm not putting words in your mouth. Yeah.
No, we would say that it's independent existence. We wouldn't just say it's mere existence.
That's also fine, but it always exists though, yes?
Yes, yes.
Independently.
Yeah.
Okay. So there's always a foundation to existence. You say God. I believe so too. Okay? I don't mind using the word God even. The issue is for me personally is when you put the idea. Those are all limited human things.
Hang on, that's true of us and how we exist. Different skin colors, different heights, different genders, different.
Can I just finish, please?
different
Sorry.
culture.
But this might answer you, yeah? With respect, sorry. Because what I'm saying essentially is for God to change in any way, meaning there's no universe, now create a universe. Yeah, that change, that's not God to me. Change, for something to change, there has to be a foundation of the change. Okay? God to me cannot be something that changes in any way or changes things. That's literally a limitation on God. So what I believe is, with respect to religions, yeah, you can use the label God, but they teach the people incorrectly, my humble opinion.
You just said I don't mind believing in God. If you believe in God, what do you think is the purpose of God?
No, if I say it like that, then what I meant by that is I don't mind using the label God. That's what I meant. I don't believe God is an entity. No, not at all.
Then what then?
Huh?
What is the ultimate? What is the
You ready?
ultimate?
Everything!
What does that mean?
Literally what I said.
Everything is God.
In the same way, I'll use this analogy for you too, like I use this other guy over there. So, let's say it's a wooden chair, wooden table, wooden knife and plate, right? We can say there's a wooden chair, wooden table, etc., right? But that's just labeling, obviously. Really, all there is to the substance of the objects is the wood. Okay, so the wood is the chair, the wood is the table, the wood is the knife and fork. Yeah? So in the same way, I'm suggesting to you that the substance, so to speak, of reality itself is the same thing. You can call it whatever. Some people call it energy, of course. Brahman. I'm sure you know the term Brahman. Source, the source. Consciousness. There's another word, but God, yeah, the other word.
I think these are metaphysical questions because then you're looking at the nature of God. If He existed, there's a power, something that's created us. There has to be something that's overseeing the creation of humanity because we have these commonalities with each other. Then it's about whether you assign that deity or that thing with certain powers and not with certain powers, with the ability to do certain things. And
You're
not to do with
separating,
certain
brother.
things.
Can I throw something on this? This moment we're having now, what Tiger's probably, I might be wrong here, hinting at is that source is creating and sustaining this moment, right? It is the foundation of this existence. Without it, there would be nothing. But it is not something in the distance when we die. It's here now as the engine of this. It is omnipotent. It can create flesh universes. It has no limit. It can't. There's no effort, and this is it.
And that's the most important
This is
thing.
it.
I'm saying yes, no effort.
But you're saying,
is
how
what
is this
he's
moment coming to being then?
It is always. It has.
it hasn't always been.
No, the same way you say God
It
always.
always is.
So this moment always is as well.
The moment is eternal. It's what everything moves within it.
Exactly.
This is the metaphysical understanding that
And that's clear with an experience.
But you both believe in the prime mover. So if two people are fighting,
The what? Prime mover.
yeah, you believe in it. Yeah.
one.
So if two people are fighting, would you say it's God fighting God?
I wouldn't use that term, no.
No, but it is technically God versus God, isn't it?
No, not technically. Remember, it's not that is God. It's just a label. I don't put too much emphasis.
Okay,
on the
then
label.
is it the God label versus the God label?
You could use that label if you wanted to, yes. If you chose to use that that label to make a particular point. So you
then-
could also just say
Closer you are to the
people.
revelation of God,
Yeah,
the
you also
purer
say
it is.
people.
That's
If
what I
we
understand.
then
The nearer
say
you are to
one
your
person
understanding,
raped another
there is
person,
no fight. There is
can
no,
a person then say the God label raped that God label?
They could say that, but one of them will still go to jail.
It's so pure. It's uncorrupted.
And
by
would you say
inspiration.
it's
I
the
get
God
that.
label going to jail?
It is.
No, brother. Like I said, I wouldn't say
but
that.
there's still two guys.
But you
fighting,
said
as
you wouldn't say
said.
God, but you'd say
No,
the God
still-
label.
It's all about situation.
It is part of that, yeah. but
Don't
there's-
assume for
there's
1
even
second
a-
that I go outside say, hey, everyone, you're
No,
God,
but
God,
that
God.
thing's
Go on the
you
bus,
and I
oh,
now,
hello, God.
all is new.
Yeah,
right?
that would be...
But you
Yeah.
believe everyone's God, isn't it?
No, like I said, it's one label.
Label.
It's
I don't know.
we are all that one so-called thing, to use a label, okay?
That's the bit I
And
find
one word I don't have any problem
but I
with calling
find
is God.
it's the
As,
quieting of the mind.
Tell me
When
more
you
about
closer
this.
to that
Did you say
understanding,
you're...
because the mind is
You
always
didn't say, but are you
divided.
Indian?
It's about bringing
Pakistani.
opposites
Pakistani,
together.
The other thing I would say is,
So you might be aware of terms like Brahman and like all that.
human rationality.
I'm aware of it, but that's from Hinduism, yeah.
I was asking you, you're aware of it.
Yeah, that's why I said
Because God is a
because the
unity.
Pakistanis, yeah, they
I know
don't
you're more
believe
Muslim,
in
Jewish
obviously,
terms, we're never gonna
which essentially means
understand.
everything
This
is
is
one.
open for
Essentially,
interpretation if we were to leave it
the
to
ultimate
human
reality is
rationality.
Brahman, essentially.
But if we were
Which
to
is also what I'm
defer
saying.
that to God,
I understand. You
And I put it to
can't
you,
would be an
right?
object.
the root
Yeah,
at the
that would
root.
be an objective. Someone that gives us the answers. And surely we need a
Sorry, I had
third-party
the idea,
universal
the
being
thought a
that
moment
can
ago.
give us answers that are applicable to all of us.
no, I
Because
hear
everyone will
that.
come to their own conclusion,
I
and
hear
some will
that.
come to the
Oh
wrong.
yeah, well for one,
I hear that.
You, I'm
what
talking
about
about
the
as
Buddhist
like
monk
religious
that
people,
sits in the
like,
cave
blanket.
and has a union with God,
I
or
believe
Hindu
separate
has samadhi?
God.
But we're not saying that person
Okay,
doesn't
actually,
have some
literally,
sort
you
of
said God is outside of
existence,
existence.
but the way
outside
that
of
it's meant to be and the way that is revealed.
Well, I would
and the
say,
way that God
yeah, when
himself
he
has
created it, he's independent from his
I
creation.
remember what I was going to say now, sorry, it's come back to me. Alright. So, again, don't let me put words in your mouth, of course. You would say God is
Yeah, I hear that.
the most powerful, all powerful. How do you say
Yeah, God is he has power over all. Yeah.
He has power over all.
That is fine.
So not the most powerful.
You're gonna ask that question about can he create a rock that even he can't pick up?
No way, man. But that's interesting that you're being defensive then, because you're assuming what I'm going to say.
No, because I've heard that so many times.
I'm just talking.
Yeah. No, it's not defensive. It's just
It wasn't the best word, yeah, but
Yeah.
you're still assuming that what I'm going to say. So,
yeah, probably.
because if we're talking about truth here, I need to know if that's true. I don't want to put words in it.
Yeah.
So is to you God the most powerful?
Yeah, God has power over all. That's the semantic.
Yeah, but that's not the same as the most powerful. Is God the most powerful?
Because I hear other
Okay,
down here.
let's just say yes.
Bro, honestly, I'm not trying to trick you.
That's why I said the words that I would use is God has power over all. You're saying is God all powerful? I'm saying I would rather say God is power. He
But
has
you're
power
saying, you're
over
saying
all.
rather, okay, but is it also true that God is the most powerful? I'm not sure what.
Okay.
No, okay, is it? I don't know.